like I've been doing, and we will post it. Let's see, share the screen. All right. All right, so just for record purposes, this is the Texas DX Society's monthly meeting for July, and that'll be on the video so we can see that when anybody wants to look at it. Our agenda tonight is welcome, and we appreciate all of you guys showing up, and particularly John, who I have not spoken with before to the best of my knowledge, so welcome. We'll have a short discussion from the officers, and Steve, I'd ask Steve kind of impromptu here to talk about the recent TDXS members that have passed, just so that everybody knows. I wanted to have a short follow-up or a follow-up on field day, so I have collected a few statistics for that just to offer. They're not official, but they'll be of some interest to you, I think. Kind of the main topic for tonight is to talk about the Texas QSO party and preparation for it. The 2020's TQP is coming up pretty soon, and a number of people in the group want to give some input to Keith about some potential changes for this year. So we thought it was good that we would talk about those now, so that we can make any changes we decide to make in time. We have a small presentation tonight that we refer to as the tech topic. This is where people send in a question or ask a question, and Kim has got a small team that's put together to try to respond to that question. And a question was submitted about the NanoVNA, and I was volunteered to do that. So we'll have that little discussion toward the end. And I want to, we'll talk a little bit about the board of directors meeting, which is coming up in a week from this coming Saturday, and then we adjourn. So anybody have any changes or anything we want to delete or add?
50th anniversary.
Okay, don't let me forget that. I should have put that on the list, but I did not.
Excuse me. Call me.
Okay. Okay, let's see. So, so I'll stop sharing this thing for a second. So do any of the officers have anything that they would like to talk about tonight, financially, or any other item that we want to put in front of the members here?
Yes, Roby, I've got one little thing. We've got the NAQP for RTTY, and right now I've got, looks like 7 people that have signed up. In particular, I'd like to ask if XZ and N5MT are interested in participating on one of the teams.
Let me say, I don't know if I'm going to be able to transmit correctly. I can do FT8 with my radio. I can't do CW for some reason, and I'm not sure I can do RTTY. It might work, but I haven't tried it yet this week, so okay. I'm only a maybe.
Okay, well, this is no, this is an RTTY contest, so if you're really not set up for it, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay, and Al, you had a really good score in one of them a while back. Are you interested this weekend, or are you busy?
I'm not busy, but I've got to set up my N1MM and MMTTY. If I have time, I'll try to set it up tomorrow.
Okay, well, if you get set up, just let me know, and I'll put you on the team.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else that's interested, just send me an email, and we'll get you on one of the teams. We've got enough for the primary team so far, with 2 extras, so we could take at least 3 more, or maybe we could even start a 3rd team. So we'll leave it up to you. Just notify me by email.
This is Scott over in Roswell, Georgia. Is there a distance limitation on the teams? I'll be glad. I think I've already signed up to be a part of it. But my worry is that if I'm outside the circle or whatever linear
No.
they use.
Trust.
No, in the NAQPs, it's whoever you put on your team. There's no distance regulations or anything. In fact, one of my big goals has been to pick out the unaffiliated people all over the fifth call area and see if they'd like to be on a team, especially if they've got scores in the tens or the hundreds of thousands. But I haven't done that yet.
So make sure you have TUF on the team.
Oh gosh, yes, I've got absolutely positively got him on the #1 spot.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so I guess we'll go on and talk about field day, the follow-up from field day, just for kind of a recapture. I'll show you my, let's find it here. So I went to 3830scores.com and I pulled this data, which I hope that you guys could see. And this lists, of course, these are unofficial, the different entry classifications, and each station that entered in that is in that classification, and a little bit of data about the entry. Of course, you guys have all seen this, so I don't really have to explain it. But what I found fascinating about this is the number of stations that members of the TQP that had more than 1,000 QSOs for field day. And I just think this is tremendous. Here we had Norm, M9MM, you know, with almost 2,000 there. Allen with 1,500. We had Nazar with 1,300. Dale with 1,000. Jim with 1,000. And then down here we had Dave, K5GN operating K5DX, and he had 2,800. Almost 2,900. So this is just incredible. And if you look at the reported scores, you know, almost, you know, right in the neighborhood of 40,000 points. Of course, these are not official, and some of these I think may have been adjusted up or down a bit. So that's the approximate number. So this is just tremendous. And I wonder if anybody had any comments. I would like to see what we can do to have this kind of participation in other contests. It's really great.
It was great. I had a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Can I add some numbers to your sheet here? I did participate, and I can't remember. I think I made 357 contacts. I was 1B.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll send you my, I guess I'll just send you my log.
So if you want to participate as a TDXS member in our little unofficial competition, yeah, you can send it to me, and also, and I'll forward it on to Rick Hiller. Okay. And of course, you still have enough time to enter officially if you have not already done so with ARRL.
Yeah, I've already sent my login.
Did you identify yourself as being a TDXS member at that time when you sent it?
I did not.
Well, you probably
can update it.
Yeah, you probably want to update that entry. That way they'll count you, and they're going to aggregate the score. So that'd be really cool. All right. And then our little local competition, if you'll send it to me, I'll forward the required information over to Rick Hiller, who is with BVARC. He's also a TDXS member, but he volunteered to do all of the tallying for just us local folks.
Right.
So I think this is, you know, it's great. We had good conditions, and we had a lot of people, you know, this is just a statistic that I did not record, but I sent out in one of the emails, follow-up emails. This year there were over, at the last time I looked, the ARRL had received over 6,000 entries for field day, which was, I think, on the order of more than double what they had seen in the previous year. So this, I guess it's one of the good things of this this pandemic, it's got, of course, people are at home and they get on the air. So that's one of the good things. Okay.
Roby, do these numbers reflect the extra bonus points that the ARRL offered for field day?
I don't think so, but I don't really know, since this is just what, you know, people enter it. You go to 3830 and you put in your score. You know,
Yeah.
this is just the reporting scheme. So I don't know if people entered their bonus points or not. I didn't earn any, so I didn't enter any. So I think mine's accurate, but
Well, you get
you've got
50 points for
points.
entering it.
Yeah.
I mean, for submitting it
okay. So
electronically.
And if you talked about it on social media, that's another 100 bonus points.
yep.
So anyway, whoever's keeping your master total, QSO points are important, but for your club aggregate, make sure you count all your bonus points too.
So all of that is on the entry that you submit when you do your official, submit your official entry. And one of my follow-up items was to look at on the ARRL website to see the logs that have been received. And early on, I sent out a couple of emails helping people understand that some of them still needed some documentation for certain bonus points and the like. All that information is on the website. So if you want to know if your log has been, if your entry is complete and been accepted by the ARRL, you can look on the website and it will tell you if your entry is complete or not. If it's not complete, it will identify or give you some idea of what is missing.
You know what may have helped some is the contest online scoring or online reporting, because I know several of us were watching each other with another screen, and one or two people said, well, you know, they were trying to keep up with this guy, trying to keep up with that guy. So I think that contest online reporting, I can't remember now what you call it.
Yeah, the VE, through that VE, the VE3 guy. What did,
yeah, it's a Canadian guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a real-time online scoring that updates. I think you can configure N1MM or N3FJP or other logging programs to automatically report probably every 5 minutes, and then it updates every minute or 2 or 3, however you set it up. And you can watch all your teammates. You can watch yourself and all your teammates, everyone's score during the contest. And I thought that was a lot of fun. I hope we do that more and more often.
yeah, that was pretty interesting. It was definitely not very difficult to do.
No, it's very simple to set up.
Okay. Anything else about field day?
Let's do it again.
Yep, I agree, 100%. So I'll stop this. So let's talk about the TQP, which is coming up shortly. And Keith, are you with us tonight? Yeah, sure. Yeah, there he is. So we had attempted to get together before this meeting just to have this conversation. So we decided we would try to do it tonight if we could get everybody together. So you're kind of the TDXS, the TQP boss. So we wanted to discuss the possibility of, well, first of all, we wanted to hear your thoughts about this year. And then secondly, we wanted to talk about a couple of things, possibly extending the contest period, because we think that might give us some additional participation. Jim collected some statistics about what other QSO parties do, state QSO parties do, and we wanted him to share that with us all. So that's just data for our discussion. So that's kind of what this is about, and hopefully we can kind of settle on what we think it'll look like, at least in the not too distant future. And then I would like for us to see some way to, since we're not having many Hamfest or not having any Hamfest soon, see if there's some way that we might advertise a little bit to help generate participation. And I have a thought or two about that. So Keith, what's your view for 2020?
Okay, first of all, 2020 is set in concrete, so we're not changing that. My rule is 3 months advance. We passed that point.
Okay.
So 2020 is on the books. It's been published, and the reason for the 3 months is that there are publications out there, and I don't want that to be changed. Second of all, the hours are 9 to 9 on Saturday and 9 to 3 on Sunday. And the reason it was shortened on Sunday, I think originally it was supposed to be 12 hours, 12 hours. But they said, no, we want to shorten it on Sunday to make it a family-oriented deal where those who want to go to church or whatever. Plus, in the early years, at about 3 o'clock, everybody'd quit and they'd head to some bar or place to eat or something, you know, tell their stories. These were all the rovers. They were out there. So it was a rover-oriented hours. I'm not opposed to going to 9 to 9 on Saturday and 9 to 9 on Sunday if we want to extend it to 24.
I was thinking about, I was suggesting that we maybe make it an overnight thing so we get more fixed stations from more states outside of Texas.
Alan, let me interject here. Texas QSO Party is a county hunters contest. And county hunters tend to work during the day, not during the night. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but the rovers are the ones that put all the counties on the air. And I don't want rovers out overnight. And if you put overnight, they'll be overnight. So, you know, no events, it's just, I'm trying to be practical.
Okay.
We might go 7 to 7 rather than 9 to 9. That would partially solve that. Because that way you get more 40 meter, 80 meter, I think.
Yeah, I think that could help significantly, personally. Okay, so from your position, then we're locked into 2020. But so any changes we would propose to make would be for the future. Is that the view? Yeah. Okay.
I was, you know, I guess it's too late, but I was hoping we could do something and provide bonus points for TDXS members in view of the 50th anniversary of TDXS.
We might be able to do that, but
I mean, bonus points for people to work TDXS members.
That would be, I guess that would be worthwhile. I'm not sure if it'd be doable or not. You know, you have to go by what's published. And if somebody cried foul, hey, you didn't publish that, then we might get into trouble for that.
Well, something to consider. At least that'd be one way to celebrate the 50th anniversary.
That's true.
So if it's at all possible, you know, maybe we can consider that.
Well, you know, Alan, one of the things, this being the COVID ID era, you know, the early CUSO parties made last-minute amendments because of COVID ID, especially with respect to their rovers. And so we might be able to slip a little thing like that in. That's something to certainly think about.
So
how would they know? How would they know they're working a TDXS member, though?
Well, that's,
two ways. Either you publish a list, or we do our call/50.
Or your TDXS membership number.
I like the call/50.
Question. I have been trying to find and can't find it. Did you put out the bull sheet yet, Alan?
Sure.
Well, you sent out an email, and for some reason I got no attachment.
Yeah, but I immediately followed that up with
I
another
didn't
one.
get it. So would you please resend it to me? Thank you.
Sure. Did everybody else get it? Anyone else get it?
Yeah.
The second email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do I get it on the list?
It's not a list. It's all, I just publish it to the reflector.
Okay. How do you subscribe to the reflector?
Uh,
Go to the website.
Okay.
Yeah. There's instructions on the website.
Okay.
Yeah. Or just send Scott K5DD an email if you have any difficulties. Or let any of us know. We'll help plug it through.
Well, let me finish up. Looks like we're kind of moving off topic a little bit. But anyway, let me consider that bonus thing. The first thing I'll have to do is get the scorer's approval. That's Chuck, N05W.
Mm.
But if he says no, I'm sorry. But if he says, then we'll push forward.
Okay.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Keith, one comment. For the 30th anniversary, we tried, I don't know if you remember, but we tried to have a TDXS QSO party with signing /T, and we gave people, bonus points for working members, and it wasn't that popular and didn't go over that well, even though we published a list of all the members on the website. And we got one guy, I think he was a 4-station over in Georgia or somewhere, worked a slew of us, but he was about the only one.
Well, I like Alan's idea of /50.
Remember that any kind of things like that cause people confusion with Logbook of the World.
Well, how about when, I don't know what it'll take on the back end, but say we all submit our logs. And, I worked these 200 call signs, and each of my 200, you take a look at the call signs, and they automatically get a bonus added to the end of it by each of us. I'm not saying that very well, but anyway, it's sort of a surprise bonus at the back end. They submitted saying they had 3,400 points, and then they get a bonus of 400 points that we came up with because they worked 40 members.
That sounds like chaos to me.
I'm for it.
Yeah, Doug, what are we living in anyway?
Well, I had
Best of all
suggested.
possible worlds.
I had suggested to Roby, I guess a few weeks back, and maybe I missed a meeting where it might have been discussed, was applying for a 1-by-1 call sign like K5L, L being Roman numeral 50, to celebrate TDXS. If you're on the air, K5DX doesn't draw as much attention as a 1-by-1 call, and a lot of people will work you. And if you apply for it and have it in time for the Texas QSO party, that might be your bonus.
What if
So
you
do we
had
share
4
that
or 8
call?
stations?
Do we all apply for a time slot to use it, or does just one station use it, or what?
That's up to you guys. I mean, it depends on how long it's valid for, but I would say if it's, good for a month, take turns using it.
Yep. Yeah, we could do an online sign-up schedule like we do for Field Day.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So here, can I offer an idea from over here in Georgia? With the North Fulton Club, with the Georgia QSO party, we have 10 stations who are 1-by-1s for N, F, A, R, and L with the K4 and an N4. Maybe you could do that with TDXS, work all 8. Or if you wanted to go big, go all 12 if the letters were available. And then you'd have 12 stations amongst the club members who would be 1-by-1s that would be bonus stations.
We'd have 13 colonies in Texas then, right?
So does this guy here count for 3 times over then? I got 3 of those.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one thing that would be a negative about having these individual calls is that if you happen to be participating in the state QSO Party Challenge, which there are a lot of people doing that now, you'll want to operate under your own call so you get credit for all your QSOs. So that's another thing to consider because I would not be one of those stations that would get a 1x1 simply because I'm depending on the Texas QSO party to get me a really high score in that state QSO challenge.
That's a good point, Jim. But the other thing to consider is how much trouble it's going to be to do the log scoring.
Well, in any case, we probably shouldn't mess around. We should probably make a decision pretty soon. You know.
Yeah,
It'd be an optional thing. You don't have to participate in a 1x1 call sign. If we've got 8 or 9 of them, then they can work the bonus points, and that's that.
Yeah, W5L says event closed, so it looks like it's available now. I don't know about, is it September? But so the things that I've heard is either have W5L be something for the weekend of the party or a month, and just a kind of a separate thing that's not so much the Texas QSO party, but a TDXS 50th anniversary quote event.
so that was my comment on that was Steve had talked to me about this, and I had just kind of put it on my calendar for discussion after a little bit later. But I was thinking that we would, for the 50th anniversary, we could do something with COVID in mind, that we could do something like use K5DX or W5L or whatever, and then keep it for a period of time and have slots where each of us would participate, and we would we would run that station as many contacts as we could make. We could advertise this on various reflectors. Possibly if we got our act together, we might even be able to get it in QST, even though I know there's for magazines, there's a publishing deadline there. I had thought also that since all of us have something on QRZ.com, some of us only use the standard name and address thing, but you all have the opportunity for a bio. If each of us were to put something there about the Texas QSO party, that might be a good, since most of us are fairly active and our sites we get looked at pretty often. So I thought that might be a good way to get something out there so people would know what's going on.
Toby, I have a question or suggestion for you. If you do that, which is a great idea, don't get me wrong, I think that's fantastic. But one of the things, the advantage is I'm seeing a lot of, on BVARC specifically on their on their webpage, that there's a lot of newbies. They're asking about antennas, they're asking about radios, they're asking about repeaters. But one of the things that all of them seem to have in common is that they are not doing HF. They're doing UHF, VHF, and looking toward HF. This would be an absolute opportunity for us to be in charge of the station. But as long as we are the controller, they would actually be able to make HF contacts. Now, it wouldn't give them any credit or anything, but it would give them an idea of the things that they can do as an HF person. And I think that would be a huge step in that direction, especially if we put it out on BVARC and TDX, well, TDXS and all guys are already HF people. But we could put it on Echo, and we could put it on, what's that one out in West Texas, out on the west side of town, and all the different webs around, we could put that out, because I really am. I'm hearing a lot of questions about, I want to put up a station. What can I do? I am indeed restricted. And of course, we come back with $1,000 stations. These people don't have that to start with.
Well, I'm sure that would be a big attraction. If we're talking about for the Texas QSO party, or more specifically about the 50th anniversary for TDXS, that means we got to get together physically. And that seems to, there are obstacles to that, even though some people are more or less, some people have different opinions on that, but that to me would be one of the issues, taking that approach now. I don't disagree further down the line.
Okay, well, it was just a suggestion to get some of these people to get on the HS bandwagon, because a lot of them are, I got a guy that I've been talking to and on a BVARC website, and he has been asking about antennas, and he finally decided to get a GRV Junior type antenna, and he's in a deed restricted area. And I said, this is great as a very first step, but also be aware that if you don't have an antenna tuner, some stations, some radios will not tune your antenna. And anybody that sells a GVRV type antenna without a tuner is lying, because the only thing it's going to work on is 20.
Roby, I think that for me, use of the K5DX call and some kind of an event that says those of us in the club could activate that station for one day of pick a month, September, October, November, whenever we think we can get organized to do it, and hand out participation certificates for people who talk to K5DX during that period. I think that is the easiest thing to do, and it doesn't collide with the planning for the QSO party.
Okay. What do you guys think?
I have another thought. We also did a multi over for our QSO party, multi-operators at multi-stations in multiple locations, but they're all within the same county using the same call sign because of COVID. And that appears to pass muster with the FCC, so long as you keep yourself identified. But you could have several stations operating simultaneously as K5DX during the Texas QSO party, so long as you coordinated bands and modes.
I'm not in favor of that because of scoring difficulty.
Okay.
Yeah, the software would not be able to handle that type of thing for the Texas QSO party.
All right, so a question I have is, Keith, do you have, so what do we have for Keith? What do we have for the Texas QSO party as far as ideas? Are we gonna, do we think we can do any changes between now and the time for this year, or do we, and answer that question, and then and depending upon the answer to that question, we can kind of make a semi-plan for the 50th anniversary.
Well, I think that we should look into it, which I will do, as far as the /50 and getting bonus points.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't think we need to. We don't need any more changes, because they just work a hardship on Chuck.
We are less than 2 months away.
Yep.
And we've waited kind of too long, but
yeah.
But if we can do at least something, be nice.
Yep. So
I'll give it my best shot.
So when do you, Keith, when would you expect a response?
Within a week.
Within a week. Okay. So you'll let us know, right?
Yes, I'll put it on the reflector.
Okay. So for the 50th anniversary, what do you guys think about this? Either Steve's idea of the one-by-one call, or the K5DX, where all of us take turns operating over a period of time. Is that
I like
something?
the K5DX.
Say again?
I like the K5DX. You could perhaps do K5DX/50 or something.
Yeah, that'd be another thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I agree. That's what I would go for too. Is we just distributed K5DX around over a 1 month period, and celebrate, and then send out certificates afterwards.
There's nothing that says we can't do it September through December.
No.
Yeah, there is.
Jim over there.
Busy,
Well,
busy.
Yeah, I think you know, a reasonable period of time so that there's activity. You know, if you set up a long period of time, then the question is how much of that time will be, you know, would be somebody would be available to operate and would operate. Month sounds kind of long to me, but I was thinking a couple of weeks because we don't have that many members.
Well, we've got 30 people. Don't we have 30 people who could get on HF to each pick a day?
Sure.
Well, we could pick days or half days, or I mean, I can set up the online sign up spreadsheet any way we want.
Yeah.
Simple. Any way we want. We all sign up. As soon as you sign up, it's viewable to everybody immediately, and people just sign up as they want to do it, as long as we want to do it. In
Make
1
sure-
hour, 4 hour, 8 hour increments, 24-hour increments, any way we want to do it.
Make sure that Orville gets a copy of all the logs, because as trustee, he's going to get a bunch of QSL card requests, maybe. Do we want to print special QSLs for the 50th anniversary, or go with the plain K5DX we already have?
I'd say special cards. Why not?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm down to probably 300 cards max at this point.
You might
Wow,
eat it up for a field day.
You had a big run on cards then, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, actually, part of them got wet.
Oh, that's it. Okay, because I gave you 1,000 cards.
I think the flood did him in.
Okay.
Yeah. We have had about 4 or 5 cards requested from people that Dave worked. In fact, here I've got one right here. It's an SWL, a WDX2 RBF, and the guy's been around since the 40s.
I wanted to just comment one more time about slashes and things like that. There's 2 things. One being, I always see confusion about special calls with slashes and how you're supposed to report it and so on. And the other is it's an extra effort for Orville or whoever to set that up on Logbook of the World and so on. So,
Good point. What I like to-
and
what I
just
like to-
the last comment is make sure that whatever we choose is something that FT8 or excuse me WSJTX can handle, because people find out that FT8 message format won't handle some of their special calls.
That's a good point. What I like about the /50 or something like that is it's something that's going to cause people to go to the QRZ.com, and we can have an explanation of what it means there, which is a good way to get the word out about the club. If we just have K5DX, no one's probably going to look it up anyway.
Right.
So kind of parallel to that, often in the TQP, since I have a 4 call, I send /TX after when I call CQ. Of course, I don't log myself that way, and I don't know that anybody logs it that way, but you know, particularly if we could get the news out beforehand, that might help reduce some of the confusion.
Yeah, what I've done with the QSO party on this as a rover on CWs is the call / and then the 3-letter county code.
Yeah, done that too.
And N1MM actually reads that if you type it in and puts it in the county field.
Really? What a smart program that is. Why does anyone use anything else? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a couple of things to decide. So who wants to take the lead on getting these getting these things organized and come up with a final plan for our 50th anniversary operation?
I guess I'll do it. All
Okay.
right.
Attaboy, Alan.
I guess I'll do it.
Al.
Somebody's got to do it.
I like the 1-by-1 call signs, but that's me.
Okay, Alan. So what sort of time frame are you thinking you can come back to us with something?
Well, probably a couple of weeks, I guess.
Okay.
First is find out what we can do with Texas QSO Party. And then if people want to send me their ideas as far as how we will announce ourselves, whether it be /50 or 1-by-1, maybe we can vote on it. Again, I vote for the /50, and if we need, to set up a separate LOTW account, then, I'll, contribute to that, or Orville can do, whoever, somebody can do that. It can't be that hard. And link the accounts. It's not hard to link the accounts.
So go ahead, Doug.
Just wondering, what is the process for getting a 1-by-1 call?
So a comment, I can't answer that question specifically, but what I was going to toss into this conversation is Leslie, AD5 WB does that for the tall ship Alyssa for a number of years. I've operated with him, and we used to call N5E. So he knows how to do that. He would be the guy I would contact to answer that question.
And you don't need another account for Logbook of the World. You just apply for another certificate, and they're all tied together in the same account.
1by1callsigns.org. 1x1callsigns.org. That's where you can find out who's got what and sign up for one yourself.
Well, maybe we should, again, we could take a vote. Do we want to do it now, or do you guys want to send me emails with your vote?
Is there any way that do you have enough notes for from tonight to send out a note to everybody saying this is what we're thinking so far, or is it?
I haven't taken any notes, but we can. I can get together with some of you guys. We'll put together some notes and we'll send out something on the reflector. And
we can certainly do an opinion poll, 1-by-1 versus /call sign or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, K5, again, K5DX/50 to me. I mean, people will know what that means once they look it up, and they're going to work you just as much as if it's a 1-by-1, because they're going to think, well, this is some special event station. People love to work special event stations, whether they mean anything or not. So, it'll get the attention.
All the DX bulletins will publish that stuff too if you send it to them.
Yeah. So then, Alan, so go ahead and I'll send you an email probably in the morning. I'll give you some of my thoughts and some details, and then you can if others will do that, then you'll have something to work with. And here in a couple of weeks, we get an answer and then pick a time frame and make something happen.
Let's try to make it. I'm going to try to make it in 2 weeks, because the sooner we make a decision and implement it, the better off we're going to be.
Agreed. All the way. Okay.
We've already waited too long.
Yeah. Sure. We stumbled a couple of times. All right. So any other discussion?
One final note on the Texas QSO Party. Last year, I worked multi-op mobile, and we won. And we used K5DX as our call. I'd like to do that again.
Okay. Well, and use K5DX/50, and you'll do even better.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
So during the QSO party, you will use K5DX/50, and before and after the QSO party, others can use K5DX/50,
There you go.
depending on the schedule that is chosen.
That's what I like.
What's the
Okay.
date of the QSO party, Keith?
That's what?
What's the date?
Second weekend in September.
Okay, so you got some more data to kind of frame things in, Alan. So
Right.
see what you can come up with and send it out, and we'll see where we can go.
Keith, if you would, please send me an email requesting the use of K5DX during that time frame.
Oh, okay, I will do that, Orville.
Okay, cool. All right, so what's next? I think our topic was the tech topic. Is that right? Can't find my agenda here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Kim, tell us about how all this got started and what we're doing, and then I'll find my presentation and
All right.
get on the show.
Well, when we had our first virtual meeting, one of the thoughts that came to mind was this is a great opportunity to spread a little technical knowledge, because we had, I don't know, 33 people attend the first meeting, and I've been to this many meetings where we had 5 people or so, physically. So I think it's a great thing to do. And with more and more people joining the hobby with fewer technical skills, it's just the nature of the way that the league has drug us through this. We can kind of jointly become Elmers and help people to move along in the hobby and increase their technical knowledge. So what we thought we would do is create a topic called Tech Talk, or I don't know that we ever actually decided. But,
so I picked a name. Doesn't have to stay that way, but I just picked one. So
that works for me. I'm easy. And we've gotten a couple of email applications in saying, hey, can you help me with this? So we've had Rick, K5GZR volunteered, Roby volunteered, of course you got me, and we got Earl Morris. What's Earl's called? K8?
N8SS.
N8SS, okay. Did I miss anybody?
no.
Okay.
We have lots of openings.
Yeah, we'll take as many, because the idea here is if you've got an area that you feel comfortable in, an area of expertise, or an area that you've fought through to resolve a problem, hey, that's great knowledge. We'll use that. And if somebody comes up with a question in Tech Talk here to say, hey, we're going to tackle this and see what we can solve, then we need more people to do that. So Roby has agreed to tackle the one from K5VWW. He's looking at using a VNA, a vector network analyzer, to be able to analyze antennas, feed lines, and predict performance. And turns out Roby's got some experience there, so I was glad to have Roby take this one and run with it. So it's all yours, Roby.
Okie dokie. So let me get it open. So I made a little presentation. If I can find it here. I made a presentation and sent this out to you guys. Let's see here.
One more to the right.
There we go. So I made a presentation and I sent this out to everybody. It's in PDF format, so you can read it. And I basically try to address the question of what is a NanoVNA. So let me see what I can do here. So the real question is, what is a vector network analyzer? Before we talk about what's a VNA, and let's see if I can get my pages straight here.
Roby, before you leave, before you start, I need to check out.
Okay. We appreciate your attendance. Come back often.
See y'all later.
Good to see
Yeah,
you
Steve,
guys.
let me know what goes on with your tower.
Okay, I will.
Hey, Roby, why don't you let Steve make his announcements?
Oh, yeah. Steve, could you do that before you go about our members that have passed? He may be
Yeah,
already done.
sure. Yeah. Tom Taramina, K5RC, who's out in Nevada now with the super contest station, W7RN, told Orville and I about Grady Ferguson, W5FU. He had a super contest station down in Manville back in the, when was it, early 80s, I guess, for some of you who've been around longer than I have even. And so he and Tom put up this super contest station, and I think it all came down during one of the hurricanes, or tropical storms, I don't remember which, but anyway, Grady was instrumental in a lot of our trips to Nuevo Laredo, to XC2FU and XA5T, I think was one of our calls down there. Anyway, he was a mover and shaker when Randy Thompson, K5ZD, was still a local member of TDXS. And anyway, we were informed that Grady had contracted COVID-19. That was, I think, that was field day, if I'm not mistaken. I think, Orville, you called me just at the start of field day. So I don't know what hospital he was in, but they gave him convalescent plasma with the antibodies, but apparently it didn't work, and they had to put him in a medically induced coma. They had tubes in him everywhere, including his jugular. And they thought he was critical but stable. And they thought maybe he could go home in a week or 10 days, but that wasn't the case. So he succumbed to it, and he leaves behind a wife and son. The other silent key was Evie Lane, Jim Lane, N5DC's wife. She was quite active in the club and held DXCC honor roll herself, as well as her husband. And her call was W5XYL. I can't remember the call she had before, but it's on the roster list. She let her license lapse late last year, and at 90 years old, she wasn't interested in studying to take another exam and get back where she was. So she was beyond the 2-year grace period. So her daughter applied. I helped her daughter, Pam Schultz, apply for the call, and now her daughter, who lives in I want to say Grapevine, Texas, or anyway, somewhere closer to Dallas, has her call sign now. But her daughter said she was sharp as a tack, but her body just gave out, being 90. So that's two members within 2 days, I guess. So it's sad to see. Tom Taramina, I'll put a link out. I think I don't know, I may have put it out on the reflector already, but if I haven't, I'll do it. Tom Taramina is putting together a memorial webpage for Grady for the Comstock Memorial Station out in Nevada, since he was instrumental in helping build that station financially. And Tom has given us permission to use any material that he puts on that memorial webpage for our own silent key memorial webpage. So whatever Tom puts in there is going to be from his personal perspective, knowing Grady for more than 50 years as a best friend and a ham brother. And it's always better than just a plain obituary that appears in a paper. So that should be out within the next week or so, I guess. And I'll whatever I get from Tom, I'll send to Scott.
Send it whatever you can to me so I can put it in the bull sheet too.
Yeah, I'll do that, Al. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a message from Grady in the hospital on the 27th of the month. So it's been a couple of weeks. One other thing that Grady did was he was quite active in the Armadillo Run. And that was one of the predecessor to the Texas QSO party.
Okay, thank you guys. Sad news, but I appreciate you passing it on.
Okay, see y'all later. Good night.
Good night,
Steve.
Hi, Steve.
All right. Okay, so we'll go back then. The idea behind this, behind these talks, where they were supposed to be kind of short and concise. This is a deep topic, so I sent out a lot of information, and I don't plan to talk about it all, but I will try to get through some of the major points. So the first thing to talk about is, what is a VNA? It's compared to a NanoVNA. It's a vector network analyzer, and it's a RF test instrument that measures the amplitude and phase of an RF signal applied to a load, the device under test as it's called. So I'm using the acronyms, or using the words here that you see in the literature according to if you follow up on this more. So the device under test can be a number of things. It can be an electrical component or a circuit, like a filter, or a network of some kind, or it could be transmission lines, or it can be an antenna. And that's part of the story. Let's see. Tried to learn how to do this right, but it doesn't seem to want to work. There we go. So how does a VNA work? So this is a block diagram, and this is pulled from one of the manufacturer's test sites. So this is a device that has an oscillator in it, a signal source, and it puts the signal out onto a port, and it measures the reflections, the reflected voltages from the device under test that's connected to that port. It comes into basically a receiver, and it can detect magnitude and phase, as we talked about. Also, it has a second port where it looks at any signal that might come through the device under test, and measures the phase and magnitude of that. And since it knows the source phase and magnitude, it knows the input signal phase and magnitude and the output signal phase and magnitude. It can determine all kinds of things based on the network, based on network theory. Most VNAs have some sort of PC type display, and they can be connected to both a personal computer, and they have their own internal display. So these things are really, really neat devices. One thing I might point out is you don't have to have something connected to both ports at the same time. Okay, so this is basically just another kind of rendition of what I was talking about a few minutes ago. So what does it measure? In the transmission side, from the signal coming out of it, it measures something called transmission coefficients. And these are known in the electronics world as scattering parameters. We won't have to worry too much about that. It can measure gain. It can measure insertion loss and phase changes. It can measure the electrical length and delay, time on transmission lines. You know, that sort of thing. And that's coming through the device under test. For the reflection, where the signal goes into the device under test, it can measure, again, reflection coefficients. It can measure what's called return loss. It can measure standing wave ratio, and it can measure impedance. And for those of you who are familiar with the terminology, R plus JX means the real part of the impedance plus the imaginary part of the impedance. So any circuit that has only got a resistor rated only has real parts. Any circuit that has a resistor, capacitor, or inductor in it has both real and imaginary parts. And it can be used for this in particular. The reflection measurements are really good for evaluating components and antennas and transmission lines. It's the way you will use it the most. I won't say it's the most beneficial part, but it's the part that us regular people will use most of the time. So what's a NanoVNA? A NanoVNA is this test instrument that will do all of this stuff, and you're looking at a picture of one, and it is about the size of a deck of playing cards. This is the same one that I own, and I actually purchased it from Keith. And I got the calibration, Keith's custom calibration procedure while I was up there at his place the last time. Here's port 1, or sometimes called channel 0. There's a nomenclature here. So there's a signal that comes out of here, and you can adjust the frequency of the signal. And this is where the reflection coefficients are measured. And this is port 2, or channel 1, where the signal the device under test would be connected between these two, and any signal that passed through there could be measured coming in. And this display is a swept frequency display, and it shows the value of those signals over a range of frequencies, not just one frequency like a lot of your common antenna analyzers do, but over a wide range. This particular device is capable of measuring between, you can see down here, from 50 kilohertz to 900 megahertz. So these things are small, as I just said, and they're really inexpensive. For less than $100, you can get a top flight item with all of the necessary calibration devices and the like that go with it. And just for grins, I contacted a dealer to talk about a Rhodes and Schwartz instrument. Of course, it has a little bit better features. It's a few more channels. It's got a higher frequency range and all that sort of stuff. But it was, the price I got was just a shade under $18,000. So this is taking the real world RF design instruments and bringing it down to something that hams and tinkerer circuit guys can utilize. As I've already mentioned, the range for these VNAs is anywhere from 50 kilohertz to 1,000 megahertz. 1,000 megahertz is 1 gigahertz or greater. And we already talked about what it measures. It measures a single frequency, or it can measure a range of frequencies, which I talked about. And the thing that's really neat is looking at something over a range of frequencies tells you a tremendous amount about it. Now, these devices are small, inexpensive, so they have limitations. And one of the major limitations for these kinds of devices is that no matter what frequency range you use, they measure 100 points, or approximately 100 points. So if you measure from a load, let's say from 200 to 300 megahertz, you're going to get a reading every megahertz. So if you want to know something about the particular frequency, you might miss it. So you have to do some experimenting and vary your range till you find exactly what you're looking for. And between 50 kilohertz and 900 megahertz, you can see with 100 points, there's a lot of different, there's a lot of frequencies that are left out. So you have to adjust, you have to use this device within its limitations. The other big limitation of this I didn't write on here is above about 300 megahertz, these things use harmonics. 300 megahertz harmonic times 2 would be 600 megahertz, times 3 would be 900 megahertz. So at those higher frequencies, some error is introduced because the signal uses both the bass signal and the harmonic are present at the load. So sometimes it can get to be a little bit confused, but it still works, and it still works pretty well. So this is the kind of information that you see on the screen. You see the different channels. As I mentioned, channel 1 is our channel 0. Port 1 is the reflection, where the signal comes out. And this is looking at the log of the magnitude of the signal that's being reflected. It's the channel 0 is a Smith chart. And we're not going to talk a lot about Smith, or talk much about Smith charts, but this set of funky looking circles here is a Smith chart. That's a topic worth all by itself. So here's the start frequency, the measurement. Here's the end frequency, the measurement. All this is adjustable. And these little triangles help you know where help you identify what parts of the signal that you're going to look at. And let's see, do I have this one? Don't have that one. Okay, and here's the value in dB or in picofarads. So it's got a lot of information. There's several pages here that talk about the things I've just sort of discussed at a high level here. The little triangles are called markers, and you can use those to set the frequency. Let's say you calibrated your device for 100 to 200 megahertz, and you decided now that you want to look at a narrower range. You can use those markers to pull that range in. But if you want more resolution, you have to go back and recalibrate it for the smaller range. There's calibration status, which let's see, I'll go back to that, worth mentioning. Over here is the calibration status. It lets you know which, because these devices are limited number of points that they can look at one time, you can make calibrations, and you can do calibrations and store them over various frequency ranges. You have 5 over which with this little device. So this tells you that you're using calibration set 0, and it tells you which corrections have been applied. And I wasn't planning on talking about those kinds of going into that level of detail, but you can tell if you were using this that it's calibrated and it's operating within its calibrated range. So you adjust this thing with a menu screen. It has a touch sensitive screen. You can use your finger, or you can use a plastic little wand or something like that. You tap the screen and you get these various menus that come up where you can set the display. You look at what channels you're looking at what each channel is, the way each channel is set up, whether you're going to be looking at standing wave ratio or impedance or the magnitude of the reflection coefficient or whatever you want to look at. Let's see, let's go back here. So it mentions down here that there's a rocker switch on top of it and a lever, so you can operate this thing through the screen or through the physical lever. So let's go back and look at that. So up here, there's a USB port that is used for charging and used for connecting to a personal computer. And I didn't make a very good picture of this, but there's a little rocker switch here, and you can use the rocker switch to move the cursor or move the markers back and forth across the screen. You can use it to select menu items and that sort of thing. So you've got both the tactical input with your fingers, and you've got the touch screen to work with. And then whenever you decide, so whenever you're going to input a frequency, for instance, you touch stimulus, and this is going to be the range. You're going to input the range over which you're going to do your measurement. So you would touch on that screen, and you get this little keypad that comes up, and you can put in, let's say we were going to go to 3.5 to 6 megahertz or 3.5 to 8 megahertz, for instance. So you put it 3.5 M for megahertz, and then that's start. You punch stop, and this little screen will come up again, and you put in 8.0 megahertz, and you tap you tap 1, and then you've loaded that range of frequencies in. So that's the way that sort of device works, or that part of the device works. There's a lot of options on here menu-wise. This is a menu map or structure map that tells you what all you can do with the keyboard in the different menus. So you've got the home menu that tells you the different kinds of things that the different sets that you want to look at. So like display goes to trace, and you can select which of those 4 traces you want to do something with. And then once you selected the one you want to do something with trace 0, you can come back and choose format, and you can tell it that trace 0 is supposed to be the log of the magnitude of the reflection coefficient, or phase, or delay, or is it supposed to be a Smith chart representation, or a standing wave ratio, and then, or any of these others. And that's sort of the way the system works. It's pretty extensive, and it gives you a lot of flexibility as far as setting up your device. So one of the really important things here is calibration. They refer to something as a calibration reference plane. So you're going to have, as you guys, as you may remember, transmission lines change impedance and phase and magnitude in relationship of voltages along their length. So you have to define the point at which these measurements are going to be calibrated to. So between the 2 ports, there are cables connected to your device under test, but at this calibration plane is where you put your calibration standards. And your calibration standards are pretty simple. There's an open circuit, a short circuit, and a load of a known impedance. And that impedance, of course, is in this setup is 50 ohms. So here you have and this SMA refers to the kind of connector. These are small SMA connectors. They're gold plated. They're just small to work with, and they have so they're pretty easy to work with. So you have a 50 ohm load, a short, and an open, and then to connect the 2 devices together, you have a through connector. So well, I'll talk about that in a second. But the real important point is that if you calibrate it with those standards in this place, this is where the value that you read on the screen is accurate. If you attach another piece of transmission line and go away from this, then the numbers will change, and they will not be, I won't say they won't be usable, but they won't be accurate. This is what it looks like in the box. So here's your VNA. You can tell it's kind of small, your USB cable, your little cables that you use to connect to your load. Here are your calibration standards, and here's your little connector to join the 2 cables together. And you can see this thing really is quite small. Here's another picture of the loads, just so you get an idea of kind of what they look like. Again, they're small, so you can't muscle them around too much. So the calibration procedure is pretty straightforward. You go through the menu and you reset it, but you apply open to the port you want to calibrate, and you tell it that an open has been attached. Then you apply a short. You take the open off and you apply a short to that same port, and then you tell it that you've attached the short, and it makes its measurement. Then you connect the 50 ohm load to it and tell it that the load has been attached, and it does its thing. Then you go through these other isolation and transmission procedures, and then the device has all the information that it needs to know what the actual values are connected at the reference point. Then you can go back to the menu and you tell it you're done with calibration, and then you tell it which one of the memories you'd like to save. Now, the really important, save it into, the really important point here is that since these measurements are only good over a, you know, kind of a limited range, you might want to have a multiple calibration saved. And once the calibration is saved, as long as you keep the physical configuration the same, all you have to do is turn the device back on and recall calibration for that particular point, and you're up and running, you're ready to go. So it can save you a lot of time. So how would you use this thing around the shack? Well, this is borrowed some of this, most of this information comes from the user's manual for the NanoVNA. Some of it came from a couple of other presentations I found on the internet. Probably the most common use of this is to use this thing at port 0, like an antenna analyzer. We'll be looking at the voltage standing wave ratio and how that changes over frequency of an antenna. We can get an idea of the impedance at the point at which the VNA is connected to the transmission line. We could also, even though I'm not geared to talk about this, we can also look for distances, calibration errors, fault locations in cable. There's a device called a time domain reflectometer that can tell you where you have a fault in the cable. You could look at circuits, like if you wanted to build a matching network for an antenna, you can certainly tell whenever you can get the values of impedance and the like that you need in order to do your calculations. You can also evaluate filters with it and that sort of thing, but these are much higher order work than what most hams would use it for. And the one I think is kind of neat, if you need a frequency reference, there's your frequency reference, because you can dial in any particular frequency and you get a continuous non-modulated tone at that particular frequency. So that's good for calibrating or adjusting amplifiers, you know, like receiver preamps and that sort of thing. It's kind of neat. So again, kind of what I talked about, if you calibrate your NanoVNA over its desired frequency range, if it's an antenna, you connect it to port 1. The NanoVNA can be taken out in the field because it's very small. It contains an internal battery. Mine will run for several hours before it finally peters out. The screen is quite small, so it's a little bit difficult to read. It's not very bright, so it's a little bit difficult to read in bright sunlight, but it can work. You can also connect this to a USB cable, through a USB cable to a PC, and run a piece of software called NanoVNA Saver, and that allows you to save the information that the NanoVNA has collected and store it on your computer, and you can go back and analyze it and do other things with it with that software. It's really quite good, particularly for the price. It's free. So the analysis of an antenna gives you the standing wave ratio and the impedance, both real and reactive portions, and how that varies over the range of frequencies of which you have evaluated the antenna. So it's quite interesting to know what the standing wave ratio and or impedance is over that range versus just a single frequency. And I think that's the most common use for us. And you do the comparison, MFJ, handheld antenna analyzer is several $100s, and that's one of the lower end instruments. Some of the ones from, and some of the ones from the other manufacturers like Rig Expert are $600 or $700. And they have their place, but this device will give you similar information. And again, we're talking about for less than $100, and it's really it's really very interesting. This is kind of one of those things that have turned the RF world on its ear, because it gets so much information at such a low price, and it is actually fairly accurate. So this is the suite of what an antenna would look like. This particular one is 160 meter inverted L. Here the frequency is starting at 1.7 megahertz. It's ending at 2.1 megahertz. You can see at the particular frequency of choice here, the standing wave ratio is 2.03. This Smith chart and here's how the standing wave ratio varies over frequency. This is 2.1. This is 1.7. So you can see how this works. Actually here, and here's the frequency of measurement, 1.84 megahertz. I believe that's right. And gives you the value of the impedance, 29 ohms. So, but this is how the frequency, or the Smith chart representation is simply a picture of the impedance in a special kind of a graph. So you don't have to worry too much about it, but if you're really interested in something, learning about RF and about antennas, and the Smith chart is a really, really handy tool for that analysis. So this is the kind of thing you would get. And this guy looks like he's got, he kind of has got a workable situation. Not all situations are that good, but it simply tells you this. It tells you what you want to know. It gives you more information than just the standing wave ratio at a particular point.
Can you tell us briefly what that Smith chart is, what it means?
Okay, what a Smith chart is a graph of real and reactive values. This circle is circles that have a center that move along this line are resistance values. And this one happens to be 50 ohms. Anything that lies on this line, an impedance that lies on this line, has no reactive component at all. This is an inductive, a circle with an inductive reactance circle. And you just imagine a whole bunch of circles being drawn. These circles all start, the bottom of the circle, all of the inductive reactance starts always at this point and goes up. When you go this way, the inductance gets larger. And this is capacitive reactance when it's on the bottom. So what this is at any point on this curve is a value of real resistance of a circle of this diameter, whatever it is, and a inductive reactance of this value, whatever it happens to be, and I can't read it off here. So this Smith chart was developed back in the middle 30s, I guess it was, by a guy named Philip Smith, and he solves a lot of the math for this kind of stuff is very complex because it's difficult, because it's got a lot of complex algebra in it, meaning real and reactive components. So this graph is basically a nomograph that allows you to determine all kinds of things. For instance, without getting too far ahead, let's say that your antenna, you had an impedance here. This is where your antenna's impedance is. If you wanted to know what will the impedance be of a transmission line that's a certain number of feet long, then you can calculate that into terms of a wavelength, and you can go in a clockwise direction around this Smith chart, and it'll bring you over to this point, and it will tell you what the impedance is. So you can actually do what impedance you'll see. You can actually solve matching equations just by drawing on the curve. Am I helping you at all on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just spent $400 for one of those rig expert things, and I'm beginning to wonder why I didn't do this.
Well, this is all new, so it's changing very rapidly.
Yeah.
John, I also bought the Rig Expert, and this wasn't out at the time, but I've had the same thought.
It's like, what did I do?
Rig Expert price will probably be coming down soon.
Yeah, I think it will. Now, honestly, so you got some value for your money because the Rig Expert is much more durable than this thing. When you look at one, you'll see that they don't even really come in a case. They have a top and a bottom. They're a little bit difficult to see, particularly in bright sunlight. But I don't know. All of us here are old enough to remember whenever the Japanese cars started coming into the U.S. You know, I heard all people tell me, you know, the talk I was hearing is that they're no good. You know, they'll never last. It's a flash in the pan. And of course, that didn't turn out to be that way. And I think this is a game changer as far as RF test equipment goes. And I think this will make a lot of those other instruments become much less expensive. And I think they will go in the direction because the technology that's used here to do this is very similar to the technology that's used in the Elecraft K4 as far as converting these high frequencies down to something that the little computer that's in this little microprocessors within this box can handle. So it's I believe it's a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Does the USB cable and software allow you to see this on your computer monitor?
Yes, it does.
Roby, this is the 4-inch VNA, and
There's one right there.
is $59.
wow.
This is the
Yes.
F. This is the F, Robbie. $125.
Well, the expensive
Okay,
rig
so I
rig
stopped
expert
sharing.
one, the expensive rig expert thing only goes up to 200 megahertz.
This goes to this goes a little bit higher, 1.2 gigs.
Jeez.
John, don't throw yours out yet. I've got the AA54, which goes up through 6 meters. And when I put up my antennas in my tower, every antenna sat on the Rig Expert, you know, and I documented its performance and the inductance and, you know, the reactive impedance and so forth. And it was an invaluable tool in getting the antennas tuned to frequency and the feed point impedance correct.
Roby,
Yes, Jerry.
my picture right now is Elecraft's answer to that. It's got everything you could possibly think of doing to an antenna. It's what they use at the factory to tune their antennas with. As you well know, every antenna that they put out is just a slightly bit different. So to standardize that, they use this device. I happen to be very fortunate. I was talking to a guy at the lab, and he says, I've got one that we've used for months, and we're getting ready to sideline. He said, would you like to have it? And I said, sure, I'll take it. How much? $50. It's got the calibration. These things here are little calibration units, like you were talking about. The one I happen to have in my hand is a 50 ohmer. There are also, with this kit, and I don't know what it would cost now, but there's 2 converters for RG to the RJ type connector. See if I can get this thing to focus on it. If you can see it, I don't know. Come on. There it is. There's the kit. It also comes with the cables, which are over there. And the whole thing was $50. And it will tune an antenna down to a gnat's bumblebee. So
Okay.
I don't know what they have now. I know they're still selling this stuff. probably is pretty expensive since it's got a Lacrosse name on it. It says it's a Step IR 23757 calibration unit. So, I mean, it does pretty much, in fact, I can get it to do Smith charts. I can get it to do anything I want it to do. But like you said, you can find out the capacity and reactive resistance on a specific antenna at a specific frequency and tell you whether your antenna is going to put out maximum power. That's amazing to me. And these things are not like the great big MFJ units and so on. This thing isn't even the size of a cigarette pack.
Oh, yeah.
So you can just put it in your pocket, climb your antenna, and hook it up, and check it out. Or lower it. Yes, some people do, like Alan and I have capability. Lower it down, check it out.
Yeah, Jerry, can you come out to my place and climb up to 120 feet, check my 40?
I'm not agile enough right now. I had just got out of the hospital, guys. I had surgery on my left foot. My small toe had to be broken and realigned with a pin. So I'm going to be off my feet for the next 4 to 6 weeks.
And after that, he'll be willing to come over and do it.
Yeah, that'd be fun to get up on 120, 160 foot antenna.
Well, just another example of what is happening in this, what is happening in the world today. So
absolutely. And I'm willing to bet you wait 6 months or a year, and it's going to be even a whole heck of a lot cheaper.
Yep. So let me finish up here. So this is what the trace of a multi-band beam might look like. And each of these spots is a low resistance, and you're looking at over 12 to 30 megahertz. To just give you an example of the kinds of things that you can see with one of these devices. And again, simply set up to measure standing wave ratio. So the couple of comments here, here's some reference information. And since you have a copy of this presentation, you have all these links. This is the NanoVNA users group. And these guys, this is incredibly active, and I'll talk about why in just a minute. They have an online manual, and most of the, or a lot of the material that's in here came from that online manual. There are many, many, many YouTube videos available about how to use these devices. And the NanoVNA Saver is just a piece of software that is written in such a way that it'll work on a Windows computer, a Linux computer, and that sort of thing. And you can reload, you can download it and load it on your computer, and you can connect your NanoVNA with it. So the comment I wanted to make, kind of a closing comment here, is if you're subscribed to this group, you will be inundated with emails because there are multiple manufacturers of these devices. Some of them are simply copying, cloning the work that was originally done and producing their own unit, putting their own name on it. Some of them are doing somewhat similar designs, and they're producing those things. They're sold by multiple different companies across the world. Most of them come from China or Taiwan. So when you buy one off of eBay, you don't necessarily know who you're getting, whose unit you're getting, or if you buy one off Amazon, you're not necessarily know whose unit you're getting. But the other point I needed to make is the software that goes with this, that's internal to these devices, is upgradable. Just like you're upgrading the firmware in your K3, you can download the software and you can load it into this device, and it adds new features. So the material that I'm using to make this presentation is a bit dated, even though it's only a couple of weeks old, because if you're a member of this users group, you see these software writers are coming out with new things every day. So the software is version 3.1, then tomorrow it's 3.2, and day after tomorrow it's 3.6. and each one of them has different sets of features. So it's kind of hard to keep up with, kind of like a boiling pot.
Sounds like N1MM.
Yep, to a certain extent, it is. It's that sort of thing. So there are, but this, if you get one of these devices, if you're interested in learning to use it, the files that are stored in this this group's IO of the NanoVNA users is well worth it to join that group. You don't have to necessarily have to get all their messages, but you can get to their files. They have lots of information there. It's really an active group. They answer lots of questions, and there are some very knowledgeable people here. So that's kind of my comment about that. So between here and YouTube, you can get a tremendous amount of information. You know, the quality of YouTube videos varies all over the place, but there's quite some good ones, and there's some that honestly not very good at all. But it is a good place to go to find information. So did that help out a little bit?
Roby,
Yeah.
quick question.
I certainly think so.
Certainly.
Roby.
I would
I
think
got
that
one
a software upgrade to give you more than 100 points would be an easy thing to do. Does that sound right?
Well, I think it's more a limitation of the hardware than it is of the software, because I haven't seen that. That's an often talked about point, but if you use this device in conjunction with NanoVNA Saver software, you can set this thing up in segments. Say segment 1 is 100 points, segment 2 is 100 points, segment 3 is 100 points, segment 4 is 100 points, and now those 4 segments cover your desired frequency range, so now you have 400 points.
Roby, one point that you helped me out with on mine, I am looking at tuning these Shark antennas, and in each one of them, these are mobile antennas, and they're each of them are like a Hustler. They're tunable, and to start out with, I've got this thing set up to do a 2 megahertz sweep centered on the center frequency, 7074, 7025, whatever. And then as you see where the low points are in the visual, you can actually cut down on that sweep width, and you still got your 100 points. So if you can put that 100 points in a 50 kilohertz sweep and get down to the net. But then you can actually peak or tweak that little antenna to the lowest visual or max gain or whatever.
What I find is really remarkable about this is you'll have somebody tinkering who will just put together something like this, and he'll put it out onto a public domain website. And pretty soon you've got 100 manufacturers making them. It's just incredible how fast the technology proliferates.
Yep.
And I use, so mine has pretty much replaced my MFJ antenna analyzer. And you guys, I do a lot of tinkering. I do a lot of messing around with antennas. And I find it quite a valuable tool. I use mine every 2 or 3 days. And
Roby, how long does it take it to do the 100-step scan?
It's instantaneous. You won't know that it's doing the scan over and over and over while you're looking at it. So it takes just a fraction of a second to do 100 steps.
It's the blink of an eye. You can't catch it.
In fact, you can pause the scan if you wish, but otherwise it won't. It scans continuously. So I was working on a 30-meter vertical, had this thing connected, and I was actually watching the thing change as I moved the extended the vertical up, and you move the vertical, made it longer and shorter. Of course, when I touched the vertical, it made it look screwy, but
Yeah, what's interesting is I looked up NanoVNA on the computer. Walmart has it for $37.99.
Way to go, Jim.
And all the cases of COVID you can pick up.
Oh yeah, well.
Well, and it's
that's
going to
what
get
the
cheaper.
knives are for.
It's like Mike was saying, you know, they're going to see that somebody's going to see it, they're going to buy it, they're going to reverse engineer it, and the next thing you know, there's going to be 100,000 different manufacturers out there.
well,
And they're all going to try to undercut somebody.
and
Now,
there's no reverse engineering to it. They publish the circuit.
Now, one point though, the ones you see online, gotta be careful because some of them don't come with the calibration standards.
Absolutely. That was the one thing that got me about the one that I got from Elecraft, the SARC, was this particular kit comes with calibrations, and you can recalibrate it if you think it's wrong. And I just got my unit back from Elecraft. As you all know, it was FUBARD. And I happened to decide that I was going to check it to see how accurate it is. And it matched their specs right to the hundredth of a thousandth of a decimal. It was amazing. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, Rudy.
Okay, that's my story. I
All
hope
right.
I didn't get too.
Ruby,
You sticking to it?
I have one more comment on the NanoVNA. My experience, the one that I sold to you was $60, and I got it about a year ago. And a friend of mine says, "Oh, you paid too much. I got mine for $45." Took him 3 months to get it.
Well, if you're in a hurry, yeah, that's going to be a problem.
That is one big topic on the NanoVNA in their reflector is some people are finding they can get these units delivered in reasonable times, 2, 3, 4 days, and some people are finding that it takes them months.
Yeah,
So
that's-
it depends on where it comes from.
China.
That's the one caution about the low price. You're usually talking about months to get it.
Coming from China on the slow boat.
It also depends on if they've got any in stock already.
They all come from China. Don't get me wrong. It's just that they come different methods.
I bought mine out of a company up in the north, Illinois or someplace up that way. And it was $59. He had just sold through 300. He had another 300 on the way from China. And he was selling these things by the thousands. The guy that actually came up with this NanoVNA H4 is sort of I got the impression he's a guru, and he's doing a lot of the modifications, but they are using his design and carrying it from there. I can't remember his name right now. It's a Chinese type name.
Robbie, if I may.
Sure.
Just thought I'd reflect a little bit on how I used it. I have a rig expert, but it's still a VNA, but it doesn't have some of the features that the one that Roby's just discussed with you. But when I put up my antennas, I took the VNA up to the antenna feed point and attached it basically with a double female connector. And that told me what the antenna looked like before I'd connected the feed line to it. And that was really useful information. And I saved all of that through the app so that now I know what the starting point of the antenna was. The other piece of information I wanted to relate to you is that Al Vosick, KN5A, had been off the air for 20 years and
Had a meeting.
Oh, hello, Mark. But Al had contacted K5WA and said, hey, my antennas are all screwed up and they've been up 40 years. Can you help me out? And what Bob did was take the VNA out there and use the TDR function, the time delay reflectometer, to determine that he had a bad piece of coax. And it told him exactly where the bad connection was, which was a connector halfway up the tower. And sure enough, we went up there, broke that connector open, and put the VNA on it and said, all right, we're good up to the antenna from here. The piece of coax we just disconnected was bad. And we hooked up a new piece of coax to it, put the VNA at the bottom. Everything was good. So I know this looks like a complicated piece of equipment. You don't have to be an electrical engineer to own one of these, even though Roby is. But there are 2 or 3 things that if you learn to do with this, sweep SWR, do the time delay reflectometer to tell where you might have coax problems. Great piece of test equipment to have in your back pocket out in the shack. Roby?
Absolutely.
Good point.
So I think that's one of the beauties of what we're talking about here in what we're trying to accomplish with these little sessions, is to show you guys what's available, answer questions. And, each of us has developed kind of a set of tools that we use to keep ourselves on the air, to evaluate how something works or doesn't work, whatever the story might be there. And by sharing that, I think we as a group, we can all, kind of move up the ladder, so to speak. The thing I would encourage you to do is ask questions. We certainly share this kind of information. I've worked extensively with Orville to try to help him with his little project of getting his mobile antennas set up and using whatever tools I have in my pocket, to bring that to bear. So I think this is one of the things that a club like ours can do, makes life a lot more interesting. I like to work on problems, and this gives me a way to do that.
Oh, and Roby, when we first got engaged, I dubbed your vertical as the laser vertical because you had a vertical that performed better than any vertical I'd ever seen. And now I know why, because he got into the technical side of that vertical and made sure that it was doing what he wanted it to do. And how did he do that? He does that through, a vector network analyzer, looking at impedances, looking at ground connectivity, all those kind of things, which is why we have such a great hobby. There are so many places you can look to improve your performance. And this is just one of the neat tools that's come out through the technology to let you do that.
Agreed. Okay, anything else on this topic?
Great presentation, Roby. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a reminder, the board of directors meeting is, I think it's a week from this Saturday. I'll be sending out a proposed agenda and that sort of stuff probably early next week. The board of directors meeting will be via Zoom. It's usually just a smaller group than this, but all you guys any TDXS member is welcome to come to participate. We try to take care of the business of running the club, the business part of running the club during these meetings, during the BOD meetings, because everybody's not necessarily interested in all those details. But if you decide to participate, if you don't get I generally don't send the invitations out just over the reflector, but if you want to participate, let me know and I'll make sure you get an invitation. And they're generally on, we haven't even selected the time yet, but probably Saturday afternoon is probably the time. But and on the website, we got a calendar that gives you a rough idea when all of our functions are going to be. And with the COVID, we've really kind of jostled that around, but it's there. So that's the only thing I wanted to do about that was a reminder. Okay.
All right.
All right. So
we got another subject.
Go ahead.
Actually, it's on the same subject of the VNA. Just another use that I found for it. I have a 120-foot rotating tower, and I've had trouble getting a good 160-meter antenna up. Which is a K5WA, and I got to scratching heads, and come to find out, the VNA will give me a file that can be loaded into a Smith chart, which tells me what I need to do to make that antenna move up in resonance to 1.830, which is where I want it. And that's amazing. You just go up there, you connect the device, you run a little program on the device, you come down, you dump it into your computer, and you've got a tool you can work with that can say, all right, if you put a series capacitance of 862 picofarads in line with this, you're going to end up resonant at 1.830 megahertz. So these things are a tremendous tool when you're working with antennas. So if you're used to looking at an SWR meter and that's all you do, this is a good tool to have in your back pocket.
Absolutely. So if you really want to know, if you really want to tinker with Smith charts, there's a neat program called SIM, S-I-M, Smith. And SIM Smith is, you don't have to do all the math. You just have to put in your components. And it shows you how to do all those things. It's an incredible program. The guy who wrote it, I don't know, it's worth $1 million as far as I'm concerned, but it's, and you can download it, costs nothing. Put it on, runs on Windows, runs easy. It's a simple program to use. Got lots of tutorials with it. Got lots of information with it. So the world is there. If you're interested, you can find out, and you can learn what you need to do to master various kinds of situations.
I've used that program. That's great.
Yep, it's a good tool. So I would like to talk about one other thing just for a moment before we go. Gerald brought up the point about people wanting to get on HF or learn how to do various things. In my little Prez Says article for July, I had written about this group that Katie has, the Katie Cars group. That is about trying to remember the acronym, but it's targeted toward new hams and hams that are returning from a long time off. I've sat through a couple of their sessions, and it's really good. They had one on logging software, where some of the presentations were good, some were sort of so-so, but the idea was that they're doing the thing that Gerald is talking about. They're showing people how to do things. They're showing people how to get how to run logging programs, which logging programs are good for what, and it's really a good thing. So I'd encourage you to participate in those sessions or those kinds of sessions. We can certainly do some ourselves and I think that's one of the things we need to talk about as a club is, how can we be more of a draw to get maybe some of these guys, these technicians and other general class hams that are not on HF, how can we help them get on HF, since that's kind of what we'd like to do. I think one of the things that I had hoped to do personally, and of course TDXS could be involved in this too, was to do these little mini de-expeditions, as I call them, where I take my KX3 and go to Galveston Island State Park or something like that and operate. And it would really be a good thing whenever the virus situation gets to the point to do that, to invite some of these guys some of these newer hams, some of these people to come and look and understand how to make a sideband contact or how to operate on 20 meters, what kind of antennas are required, you know, that sort of thing. And if we can pull that off, I think that we will help our hobby and we will help ourselves grow as well. Something like that could be quite good.
Roby, I've thought about doing a similar thing out at my place, and maybe having a Saturday open house and throwing a bunch of hot dogs and hamburgers on the fire and invite people to come out and operate.
Yep.
Whether it's a contest or just get out there and operate.
K5GN did that with some guys for, what contest was that? He had a couple guys come out, went over to W5KU's place over in Sealy. And they had a great time. As they did sideband, but you know, they had a great time, and he got a couple of guys more jazzed up with contesting. So K5GN would be a good resource to
okay, cool,
to get worked into this.
Cool.
I wish you'd join our
One
meetings.
of the guys was Jimmy Vance.
Yeah, Jimmy and KC5TT, Jeff. I don't remember what contest it was, but they had a great time, made a lot of points too.
Yeah, I've been talking to Dave the last couple of days about that subject.
Yeah, you can't ask for a better mentor than Dave on any mode. I'll tell you, that guy is.
I remember when Dave grabbed hold of me that summer of 1990 at Field Day when I had my certificate, but I didn't even have my call yet, and we were using Barbara's call as the novice tech station. I learned so much from him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Plus, he's a monster on CW.
Yeah, he's a one of a kind.
And he kind of reminds me of Dave Busick, you know, back in the day.
Yep.
I always, you know, Dave Busick and I went to high school and junior high school together, and I guess part of my love for CW came out of trying to keep up with Dave Busick. Never could. Sorry.
So each of us, you know, we got that capability in our own way, right? It may not be CW, you know, like I'd say Chuck W5PR is a monster on sideband, at least from my world, he is. But you know, there's something we learn from each of us. And it's just a matter of finding somebody that's interested in getting them connected to the right person, so that you can plant that seed. It's really cool.
Just finding out what turns them on.
That's right. That's the trick. Okay, guys. Anything else?
Well, one last comment. Many of our members are CW Ops members, and I noticed K5GQ is in here now. I don't see his video, but anyway, looks like I'm getting published in the solid copy coming up. And so if any of you that are CW Ops, look for the July issue of solid copy. I'll be in there. Hello, Mark. I'll be in there, and also Chuck and O5W. We both have articles being published.
Cool.
Good for you.
Pretty cool.
I agree.
And some of us are FOC members.
Okay, gentlemen, that's all we got for tonight. Thanks for attending, participating, and we will, like I said, I'll get something out for the BOD soon.
Great meeting. Thank you.
Orville, this is Rick.
Thank you.
Orville.
Thanks.
Hey,
Roger.
hey, Orville. Do you
Yes,
still
Rick.
need me to call you?
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, you were
Yeah.
asking about the logging and
Yeah, N3FJP, and yeah, we'll get together.
okay. Yeah, send me an email or whatever whenever.
Great, thank you.
Thanks,
Robbie,
Rick.
was there any discussion on Texas QSO party?
Yes, we're going to we have the possibility of making a small change at this late date. Keith's going to look into it where we all might use /50 or something like that for the 50th anniversary of the TDXS. But that's about all at this point. And then we're going to do something, you know, as part of the, hopefully that we can do that in the Texas QSO party, partly as a commemoration for our 50th anniversary. And so that's kind of what we talked about.
Okay. Now, I was also curious about some of the, since we have a little note about spotting each other, it's not well published about mobiles, where to look or where to spot. I think some of that might be kind of neat to have on the site when we get ready to start publicizing it.
The reason I put that up is because during contests, you always get a little boost when you get spotted. Not always.
You don't know what
often,
it's like. A boost.
Well, heck yeah, you always want a boost.
It's like rain on a tin roof.
Well, yeah, but when you get spotted, sometimes you get a little boost, and if you're running. So my motto is friends spots friends. So if you're in a contest and you run across, you see one of your team members, spot them, and then go about your business. Now, you can overdo it, of course, but spot each other. We should all spot each other as often.
But I guess what I'm saying is most of us who don't know how to do that, but there's very little on when you go out there who say somebody is new to Texas QSO party. It'd be nice for them to spot some of the people that they work.
Well, absolutely.
As far as mobiles go.
As a matter of fact, you know, an N1MM, if you're searching and pouncing, you can check, you can set it up so it automatically spots anybody who's not already been spotted as you're tuning up or down the band. But there's also another place where if you hear somebody, you tap the call in and just click on spot, and it'll spot them. And again, it gives you a nice little boost sometimes. And, you know, we're all about making points. So we should do that.
Oh, true. The one I was referring to also lets the county comment. I don't know if you've ever used it or have seen it or not. I'll have to dig it up.
What is that?
Well, when I was a mobile in Texas QSO party, I was spotted there.
Absolutely, yeah,
And,
that's what I'm saying. TQP, any contest, we should spot each other. Absolutely.
I'm saying that I don't think enough people know when you should spot or when you shouldn't, or where those sites are to do it.
Right, I agree. Yeah. So maybe we should do a session on spotting, or an article on spotting, or something.
Yeah, I would think.
Well, we ought to do an article on spotting, and